Hello everyone, welcome to Bonnie Carolee Makes Cards. Thank you for joining me for some quick last-minute Christmas cards featuring Simon Says Stamp Magic of Christmas. The deadline is fast approaching for getting those cards in the mail so that they arrive in time. I make quite a few Christmas cards and I was surprised when I had depleted my whole stash. Mini slimlines to the rescue. Embossing on an ink blended background, a big impact with little effort, so let's get started. I began with my ink blended backgrounds. I'm working on Bristol Smooth cardstock with Distress Oxide inks. I first cut all of my panels using the second largest die in Simon's mini slimline rectangles. If you enjoy making mini slimlines, I consider this nesting die set a basic and one that I use over and over again. I'm making 8 cards, 2 of each design. For this first pair of cards, I'm working with black soot, mowed lawn, and peacock feathers. Working on this smaller size really does make the ink blending fast and easy. I always begin the process by applying a light layer of ink using all of the colors that I'm going to be working with. As the inks are reapplied, one color is extended into the other. For all of the panels in their different ink combinations, the color which is located right next to the black soot is extended over the black entirely. Where the color overlaps the black, it takes on a dusky appearance and then lightens up to its normal color. The inks are applied a few times, overlapping one into the other until there is a nice smooth transition between the colors. Because the panels are so small, the blending takes just a few minutes. For my next pair of panels, I'm using a combination of black soot, rustic wilderness, and mermaid lagoon. The ink blend for these panels is black soot, chipped sapphire, and dusty concord. The last pair was ink blended with black soot, abandoned coral, and fossilized amber. The panels were set aside to dry for about an hour, which was way longer than it took to do all of the ink blending. I used a stamping platform to do all of the stamping. The Magic of Christmas stamp set has a number of branches and florals that are a little bit larger in size, and they're perfect to use individually on a mini slimline. I chose one of the designs to highlight on each pair of the ink blended panels. Although there are a number of sentiments to choose from, only one was suitable for the narrow width. All of the embossing was completed at the same time, stamping each pair of the same ink blended panels before rearranging my MISTI for the next one. Before stamping with Versamark ink, I do coat the panel well with anti-static powder. I'm using my favorite gold embossing powder, Ink on 3's Gold Rush. For the 2 panels with the poinsettia, the floral is embossed on both of the panels first. I then add in a couple of the holly leaves. They do overlap the poinsettia slightly, but I don't worry about any masking. I go ahead and stamp it with Versamark ink, add my powder, and then I use a paintbrush just to knock off the powder where it overlaps onto the flower. In no time at all, I have all 8 panels embossed. The secondary stamp Blessings is positioned in the MISTI. Because the main sentiment Happy Holidays was not repositioned, I'm able to stamp each panel one after another. For sentiments, particularly small ones, I favor Black Onyx VersaFine ink. Just a reminder, the second largest die from mini slimline rectangles was used to cut all of my Bristol Smooth cardstock. The largest die has been used to die cut black cardstock, and the ink blended panel is layered on top of it. It is then mounted on a card base that measures 6.5 by 6 3/8 inches. These cards will fit perfectly in Simon Says Stamps mini slimline envelopes. Before I start embellishing, I use a microfiber cloth to dust off any of the residue from the anti-static powder. I've chosen a few sequin and confetti mixes to embellish each pair of cards. I like to use a coffee filter when I'm working with these embellishments. All of the static can sometimes make them difficult to put away, but not so with the coffee filter. They just pour right back into their container. For this pair of cards, I'm picking out the dark purple and blue confetti to adorn the berries. For the cards with the evergreen bow, I'm using some gold confetti. On the panels with the pine cone, I'm using a combination of teal and green sequins. The centers of the poinsettias are finished off with little tiny black beads. The cards are finished off with green sequins. Of course, I have to add in some shine. When I want lots of sparkle, I reach for my Nouveau Glitter Drops White Blizzard. Using a small paintbrush, a thin layer of the white blizzard is applied to the poinsettias, the pine cones, the leaves, and finally they are brushed all along the needles of the evergreens. These cards are finished off with Nouveau Crystal Drops Morning Dew on the sequins and confetti. Typically, I would finish off these embellishments with a high dome, but I wanted these to go into the mail the next day. I wanted to add the shine so that the sequins and confetti really stand out, but I wanted them to be thoroughly dry as well. I showed a lot of restraint and applied just a very thin layer of the Morning Dew. These cards are ready for the mail the next day. I can rest assured that the sequins will be completely dry and I won't have to worry about them sticking to the envelopes. And that wraps up this set of 8 mini slimline cards featuring Simon Says Stamps Magic of Christmas. Whether you need a card quickly or want to make one that is easy and has a lot of impact, embossing on an ink-blended background in a mini slimline format is your ticket. If you are interested in any of the products that were used to make these cards, you can find them in the description of my YouTube video or on my blog at bonniecarolee.com. Thanks so much for stopping by, and as always, I appreciate your visit.